So you might have seen there's a whole thing going on with Fairgames, the potential upcoming live service multiplayer game from Sony PlayStation. This comes from a team called Haven Studios. They were founded back in 2021 by Jade Raymond, who you might know from Assassin's Creed or Watch Dogs or Splinter Cell Blacklist or whatever. Now, across the last few days, there was a whole thing that happened because Michael Pachter, who is an industry analyst for the games industry, goes back like 20 odd years in terms of being a more recognized name in the industry. He alluded to the idea that the game was cancelled. Now, this was the first time that a lot of people had heard about this, and the first time it had any updates on Fairgame since the game got a trailer a few years ago. Pachter initially said PlayStation turned all their console developers into live service developers, which resulted in the likes of Concord being shut down, the studio being shut down, which resulted in Jade Raymond being let go and her game being cancelled because they're bad managers and they don't know what they're doing. Now, the way that Pachter described this, it was just off the cuff. He was recording an answer to a person's question asking about Sony's live service stuff, but that little offhand comment of like, oh, you know, Jade Raymond left and then the game was shut down, that just felt like something that he knew, insider scoop type stuff that was coming out as regards to, you know, the conversation in general, and resulted in a whole lot of headlines doing the rounds across the weekend, leading to ex-IGN journalist Justin Legary getting in touch with Pachter to say, hey, is this what you meant to say? Now, he followed up saying that he misspoke and that he doesn't actually know anything about the game itself, and then said, you know, feel free to report the fact that I misspoke, which is fair enough. Overall, though, like I said, you know, the controversy itself around the game, at least from my perspective, is that there's no way in hell this thing's coming out. There is more evidence that I want to get to in regards to where the game is at. Now, where to even begin with this thing? I mentioned Jade Raymond before. She formed Haven Studios back in 2021. Raymond actually left her own studio back in May, so it's not necessarily a great look for a team putting a live service game together if the person who founded the studio actually leaves. You know, like a few months ago when I'm recording this, it was back in May, but Fairgames itself then got pushed to 2026. It's going to be coming out, in theory, in spring 2026, which a lot of various reporters have then said lines up with the assumed release date of GTA 6. Even if it doesn't, it feels like 2026 is GTA 6's year. That just seems the one game that everyone's associating with next year, and God help you if you're trying to put anything out in the time period before or after. If it's before, everyone's saving money for GTA 6. If it's after, we're all going to be playing GTA 6. So considering how terribly the likes of Concord did, which again, you know, led to the idea of let's delay Fairgames to try and make sure that we land this plane better in another year's time, it's just not the, you know, it's not the thing that people are going to be doing with their time given another year. Also, internal playtests of the game, which were reported over on Bloomberg by Jason Schreier and also on Last Stand Media by Colin Moriarty, another ex-IGN journalist, said that internally, when it comes to playing Fairgames, which the public hasn't even seen, we haven't seen any gameplay reveals, we haven't seen what the hell this thing even is. It's just described as a heist-based multiplayer game, like an extraction shooter. Internal playtests apparently had people saying that the build of the game that they were getting their hands on was very clunky and unresponsive and just didn't seem like something that they wanted to play. So again, leads to the game being delayed by at least a year, even though, like I said, the studio was formed in 2021, the game was showing off in 2023. There's no way this thing is coming together in another year. There's just no way. I'm talking just from personal opinion, looking at the likes of Concord, looking at the way that Sony have handled their live service stuff. You've also got, I want to get to more stuff, but you've also got Jim Ryan leaving, who was a way more corporate-minded individual when compared to the likes of Sean Layden or whoever came before him. You know, you've got Shuhei Yoshida, who used to be the head of the Sony's indie initiative, who they demoted so much that he just ended up leaving. All of that stuff happened during Jim Ryan's tenure at the head of Sony PlayStation, and he himself also stepped away. The dude came in, said, hey, what if we make a ton of live service games? And then none of them took off. I'm going to read out the list of the amount of different projects that were cancelled. None of that stuff worked whatsoever. And then he just kind of stepped back and went, well, my work is done. I attempted this thing. It didn't work whatsoever. And now I'm just going to leave. Which is where Sony's at right now, reeling from the amount of live service projects that were put in motion and then cancelled. All those teams that is having to recuperate and redirect their efforts towards something that is assumedly actually going to make money and going to see the finish line. But one of the projects that is left behind from this entire debacle is Fairgames. But it is worth reading as I throw this stuff together, that the only games that are left in production are Marathon, Bungie's Marathon, which is still scheduled to come out at the end of September, even though that game's, the early playtest, the public playtest that happened across the last few months, were received pretty disastrously. I mean, the original Destiny was as well, and Bungie managed to salvage that. But Marathon is one of the only live service games that Sony still apparently believes in. Another one is the Horizon MMO, something that hasn't been officially confirmed, but has leaked many times over. Various assets for the game also leaked. And Sony are very much expanding the Horizon IP. There's the TV show that's coming. I forget if that's on Netflix or if it's a wider TV show, but we're getting a Horizon TV show. That'll be the third part of the Horizon trilogy. And then there's the Horizon MMO as well, alongside the likes of Lego Horizon, which got the franchise onto the Nintendo Switch and managed to make it a bit bigger in that direction as well. So we've got Marathon that's coming out. We've got the Horizon MMO, and then we've got Fairgames. There's also something called Gummy Bears as its code name, which is headed up by Jason Blundell. He's like a first-person shooter royalty developer, which in theory, that'll be some sort of Sony-owned FPS, which is the one genre that I feel they are completely lacking in. The only name that ever comes to mind is Killzone, and we haven't had a new one of them since like 2014. So in theory, we're getting that stuff. But those are the only three pillars that they've decided there are worthwhile components to these three games: Marathon, Horizon MMO, and Fairgame. So in theory, Fairgames could have something special. And again, according to the leaked playtest and the details therein, more so on the Last Stand Media side, with Colin Moriarty reporting more specifics that he was told, the game seems to be, it revolves around heists, but it revolves around multiple cities and multiple different ways that you can get into different spaces and get back out again. But it is this cross-city approach to different heist-based design. I guess it's ostensibly GTA 5 on a way bigger scale, with all these different options in regards to how you infiltrate and exfiltrate different locations. It sounds cool, I don't feel like the extraction shooter has really landed as a thing. I don't know that many people playing Hunt Showdown apart from Josh Brown. But at the same time, it seems like Fairgames is one of the games to double down on that general idea and do it bigger than ever. However, that is entirely up against the ongoing graveyard that is all the stuff that Sony has cancelled, which, to read out, they have cancelled The Last of Us multiplayer game, Spider-Man's Multiverse multiplayer game, God of War's game, Concord, which did launch but got canned after 2 weeks, a Twisted Metal game. Despite the TV show doing incredibly well, why the hell you cancelled the one thing that has actual momentum around it, I will never know. But Season 2 of Twisted Metal is ongoing and has actual buzz around it and is genuinely really fun and seems like it gets the tone of the IP that it's adapting, unlike Last of Us Season 2, at least according to most people online. So yeah, Twisted Metal game is cancelled as well. And various other codename titles from Sony Bend, Deviation Games, and a few others as well. It just seems like the overall thing, like I mentioned when I was referencing Jim Ryan's tenure, has just been an absolute disaster, left, right, and center. Very, very few projects have made it out alive from this. And you can see, as much as you have to believe that these decisions are more motivated by statistics and, dependability on certain gaming tropes or whatever, I have to believe there's more intelligence at work here than just a money-focused business person stepping in, going like, hey, what if we had 12 fortnights, and then leaving and then coming back a few years later going, where are my fortnights? And every single dev studio goes, well, to be honest, we don't know how to make them. We've been making Sony, first-party games for the better part of 10 years, and we'd rather keep doing that. And then he just goes, wipe the table, I've made my money, we're not doing them anymore. As the light decides to freak out on me, the live service alert is going off, and then it all just kind of goes to hell. So who even knows what happens from here as the light seems to... The ghost of Jim Ryan is in this light. And we'll see. But Fairgames, as much as right now you've got the same dude, Michael Pachter, saying that he misspoke, that the game in theory is still in development, I don't believe it. I think this thing is just a ghost walking, a dead man walking, and I would be fascinated and amazed if this thing comes out, especially alongside GTA 6.